Hey there, cartomancers. April here on Tarot and Witchery, and today I'm going to be talking about the Seed and Sickle Oracle and the Woodland Wardens Oracle. I'm going to just talk about both of these decks and how they're kind of similar genres, similar sort of decks, and I'm going to talk about the strengths and what I've kind of discovered about each one of these, so you can decide which one of these you might want to buy or not. I learned a lot. I have to tell you, there's a lot of these like flip throughs, like initial sort of thoughts on things, but I really want to know, did you work with it? What was it like to work with it? And so I'm going to tell you, I worked with these for 11 days and did a lot of readings with them. And I'm going to share with you kind of the feel of what I've got for each one of these and how I feel like they kind of fit into a reading. So there are chapters to this because I know that you're not going to want to know everything that I talk about in here. I do pairings, so I show how I paired them with different decks, what I kind of thought might work, and you might have different decks, right? I talk about the readings that I did, and then I'm going to just kind of share with you just the differences in the style, the delivery on each one of these. The books are very, very different, and their approaches are very different, and they just have a very unique feel. But before we jump into it, I just want to remind you that I have free PDF printables down below for those of you who want something new and fun to do with Tarot and Oracle. All right, I've got a price point up on the screen, and I don't think the price point is outrageous. They're both affordable decks. This box right here is kind of a typical box. It's cute. It's pretty. It works. It's not super sturdy, but it's still nice. This box, on the other hand, has a box inside a box. So I'd like to say that it's a deterrent just because from eco standpoint, but I actually really like the box inside the box. And you could just leave this one out. So if boxes are a big deal, maybe that's a thing for you. And here we have the cards. All right, so Seed and Sickle actually has 2 books, and Woodland Wardens has 1, and I'll get into those here in a minute. The backs of the cards, both of them are really pretty. I really like them. It would be hard for me to pick just based on this. I do love that this is green. So, I mean, that's really lovely. You can see, so Woodland Wardens has a border on it, and if it were me, because she's got this inside of something, I would have foregone the border. I am not a border fan, you guys. I'm not a border fan, so maybe that's something for you. Sorry, I'm really making a mess. I'm trying to make this is not a full flip through. If you want that, you can find it. So you can see that the art styles are very similar. This may be a little bit more folksy, if that's a word, folky. So the Seed and Sickle just has the name of the plant on it, whereas the Woodland Wardens has like the hawk and the thistle. So it's kind of got these 2 aspects that the deck talks about throughout, and then how they work together. And it says graceful persistence. Cardstock. So the first thing is that this is a full matte. This is totally matte, which I like better. This has some shine, but it's not too shiny. I have to say there's something papery about the Woodland Wardens that I like. So the concept behind the Seed and Sickle is that there is a dawn and a dusk guidebook. And the dawn guidebook says here that the dawn readings are for movement, change, new beginnings, and outward projected energy. And then the dusk guidebook here is about readings for starting new projects, building new relationships, or focusing on improving yourself. In the Woodland Wardens deck here, she says that she's assigned meanings are based on personal history, mythology, folklore, and the Victorian language of flowers. One thing that's nice about this Woodland Wardens is, and you know this if you watch my other videos, that you can see the cards on this page. So you're always going to be able to flip that way, and I appreciate that. Oh, the Seed and Sickle, it doesn't have it on every page, but it's full color. So the next thing I wanted to do was find some decks to pair with this. Pairing the backs of Seed and Sickle and the Woodland Wardens decks, I felt like the Chrysalis Tarot, the Witch's Wisdom Tarot, the Druid Craft, the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking out on the name of this one, you guys. You all know what it is. Tell me down below. Jeez. I will figure it out and put it up on the screen. The 5 Cent Tarot and then the Crow Tarot. I thought all of these backs were okay. Like I could even use this over here and feel okay with it. I thought these were really nice. And now we'll look at art styles of these. Let me know down below how you like to do your pairings. Do you like to pair your decks based on the backs? Based on the art style? We're gonna look at the art style next. Or do you like to do them energetically, like how they pair energetically? I don't know that I would pair the Chrysalis Tarot because the art style is so very different. Here is the Witch's Wisdom Tarot, and this is probably the one that I like the best out of all of these. You know, Druid Craft, I probably wouldn't do the Druid Craft. I do like this, the 5 Cent Tarot. I do like the way these pair. It's that old-fashioned sort of graphic, and I think they go nicely. Here's the Crow Tarot. You know, it's not a complete match, but I do like it. I do like it. And I would like to have different types of decks that I could use. And then, of course, here's the one I can't remember. I should just stop and find this darn box. Isn't that terrible? I do this all the time, you guys. I've talked about it. I feel like this is not a stretch, and it's actually quite nicer with this one probably than this one. I actually had the 4 Hexa Tarot sitting out because I thought it would be pretty. You may not know this, but I go by Grandma Hexa with my granddaughter, Grandma Hexa. So, and I think that it works. I think that it will work. It's not an exact match, but there's a softness to these cards. And because it is Fae and very woodland, I think that these go together really well. So it took me several days, honestly, to figure out how to use each one of these. I'm still getting over laryngitis. It's kind of crazy. It's just been days of this, so bear with me. So, you know, when you get a deck, you kind of think I'm going to just jump right into it. And the truth is that not every deck is good for every situation. And it's just an important thing to kind of find your feet. So I did a couple readings on camera, but they were sort of like awkward because I was diving into the cards and I wasn't sure what kinds of questions to ask or how to work with them. So about 5 days into it, I kind of figured it out and I started journaling on my readings as I kind of figured out each deck and how each deck works. The Seed and Sickle deck has primarily, other than the sickle here, has primarily the plant is the focus of it, and each card is named for a plant on there. It's got 2 different books, and the Dusk book is very much, it's almost metaphorical because it's going to go through and it's going to talk about the plant, how the plant works, how the plant thrives. And so it's really more about reflecting on that within yourself and how that applies inwardly to where you're at. First of all, I have to say, I do not like how small the print is on here. There is so much room. They could have gone bigger than this. It's really small. It's got to be maybe a 10-point font. It's very difficult, but it is full color and it's lovely. So let me just read you the hops in, this is the Dusk. So this is more about like internal work that you're doing. The hop vine speeds ahead through life, voraciously grabbing at each new hurdle it must conquer. But as it grows, it leaves behind clusters of flowers, and these take life much more casually. With the vine having done the hard work already, they can now reap the benefits. Hop flowers are a great treatment for anxiety and insomnia. Step back, find a spot in the sun, and soak up that restful energy. So it's kind of got something about the plant and it's sort of like a prescriptive thing at the end of it. Whereas the Dawn is much more about what's going on, like what you're doing in life. So I found that these ones worked much better for me personally. Was drawing these daily, and I'll show you that in a second. I was drawing these daily and I would read both of them. to myself, and pretty much every day, because it was a morning reading, this was the book. And as I worked with this deck and developed a relationship, I really had some profound right-on readings with it. So here in the hops, it says, walls, buildings, boulders, nothing stands in the way of the hop. The Romans called it the wolf among the willows for its voracious growing habits. It's an explorer, as are you, moving swiftly over and around the obstacles life throws in your way. You are voracious, rising above the odds. Now is not the time to let anything slow you down. So you can see that that's a very, it's a very soft way of approaching your question. It's very much about the dawn, a little bit more direct, a little bit more prescriptive, but it's really about understanding the energy of the plant and then looking at that energy in relationship to your question. Originally, when I started reading, I was pulling a card for the inward, which was the dusk, and the outward, which was the dawn. But I didn't feel like this worked at the beginning of the day because this is really like introspective. It's really about, like, this was just my general reading for the day. It didn't work so well for the dusk deck, and it worked great for the dawn deck because it's very much about what you're doing, where you're going, and it has that sense of prescriptiveness. I really enjoyed starting my mornings with this deck. The colors, the softness, the art style was really pretty, and using the dawn deck was great. I honestly have to say I did not connect with the dusk deck because I really didn't use it for that level of introspection. And I think that it would be excellent when layering, like the Witch's Wisdom Tarot, which is a super deep deck. I think this would pair really nicely because that's a lot about internal work. The dusk aspect for shadow work, and then the dawn aspect was great for just a daily draw. The Woodland Wardens deck is much more direct in its approach to just the way that the book reads, and there's a lot of folklore in it. It's a very different way of approaching it. She actually asks a question with every card that you draw, like several questions, and I really like that because it got me thinking about, pulling whatever it was apart that I had drawn. Honestly, at first I wasn't sure that I was going to like this one, even though it has keywords on it, which is something that I really, really appreciate. And I drew this card on this day, and I want to read you this one because I just feel like they're just such unique ways that they approach the cards are so different than the Seed and Sickle. So Metamorphosis. This card reminds us that change is natural, rebirth is possible, and healing balance can be achieved. The frog developing as it does from a tiny tadpole symbolizes transformation. The lotus flower, too, symbolizes rebirth, unfurling even amid murky waters. Going through such a change can be difficult and a struggle, but the resulting metamorphosis opens us to growth, self-acceptance, and happiness. So that's kind of like the little blurb that she gives right there, which is great. Bigger font, which I appreciate, not by much, but it's definitely bigger. She then has an upright and reversed. Then again, like I said, she has these questions down here. What can I change in myself or my life for the better? How can I be more accepting of change I cannot control? So right away, you can see just how different their approaches are. And that's just a different spread. I was trying to use the Intuitive Night Goddess with it, which actually this was a really great reading. And, so very different approach to the way in which these cards work. I do feel like this deck right here, the Seed and Sickle deck, would be excellent for doing magical work, like to find the plant that had the energy that maybe you were needing and to keep that out on your altar while you're trying to cultivate that. Maybe work a spell around it. I think they're really pretty images and can be used that way. Whereas the Woodland Wardens deck, I think I would use this for actually dream work, honestly. like taking a card and finding an animal that maybe you want to work with. You could even use this for journeying, like getting into the idea of this specific animal and using it in journeying, or using it in dream time, like putting this next to your bed and then cultivating this animal and this plant energy during that time. Also, I think this deck is excellent for journaling because it does have the questions at the end. So the card pull can lead you to really answering some questions that maybe you didn't even think that you needed to answer, but are perfectly timed. As I said, the more I worked with this, the better it got. And it's just like that with any deck. So when you're thinking about whether or not you want to buy these decks, I would say the Seed and Sickle deck itself, it's very soft in its approach. It's asking you to align yourself with the energy, to allow yourself to kind of get in alignment with that plant and how it is that it approaches life, and see how that approach feels with whatever it is that you're looking at. Whereas the Woodland Wardens, much more direct. I enjoyed this because I feel like it's a push, and I'm that type of person. Like I really, I like the fact there's keywords on there. So if I didn't want to look at the book, I wouldn't have to. There tends to be like a little thing of folklore, which is really fun, which helps you learn about the animal and learn about the plant, which is really cool. And again, this is much more direct. It's very much about diving into the energy and facing it head on. It's much more prescriptive. It's going to give you a lot to think about, and this is just going to be a little bit, I don't have a better word for it, a little bit more pushy. So if you enjoy a little bit more direct of a deck, then the Woodland Wardens, I've had so much trouble saying that, you guys, the Woodland Wardens deck is really going to be something that you appreciate. When I started out on this journey, I was really like, am I going to keep the Seed and Sickle, or am I going to keep the Woodland Wardens? And I really was leaning towards this at first. And then I really fell in love with this. But the truth is that I'm going to keep them both. Because I feel like they each have such a unique way of approaching things. And there are times that I really want this kind of softness. There's times that I really need to push into the energy of what's going on and swim in that. This is much more watery, water and earth, or pentacles and cups, versus this one right here, which is air and fire, or swords and wands. So it kind of depends on how you work and what you need in the moment. How many of you out there already have these oracles, and what are your thoughts on them? And have you found other pairings for them? Because I'm really interested in what you might have found that pairs really well with each one of these oracle decks. I've really enjoyed using these for my morning readings, and they have been dead on. The day before I got this laryngitis, I pulled something that said, be prepared to shift. Like they both were saying, like, be prepared to shift, keep your eye on your goals, and be ready to do things differently. That's exactly what happened. I use these for 3-card spreads, and I think these would be perfect for that. So you may want to check out my 3-card spreads video over here, where I talk about some more unusual 3-card spreads. And some of those are for going deeper, which I think this deck would be perfect for. Until we meet again, slow down. Before you purchase, take some time to really do a little bit of research. There's no rush. Get the deck that's right for you.